My 9-year-old's tears were still wet on my shoulder when I opened my banking app. Her little arms were wrapped around my waist, shaking as she cried into me. I held her close with one hand while my other hand hovered above one single button, the button that would end 16 years of silent funding with one click. My heart was beating so hard it felt like the whole room could hear it. My finger trembled not because I was scared, but because I knew what this moment meant. For 16 years, they drank from the river of money they thought would never run dry. They toasted with champagne. They lived large. They spoke down to me. They counted me out. They thought I had nothing, was nothing, would always be nothing. But they had no idea that the person they mocked was the person who fed their entire dynasty. Right now, this very moment, they were probably raising their glasses again somewhere in New York or Los Angeles, making a toast that would never clear. Not today. Not ever again. Supply cut. Dynasty over. And as my daughter's soft sniffles slowly calmed, I placed my thumb over the screen. One click. That's all it would take. 16 years of silent sacrifice would end. But just as I was about to press down, something happened behind me. Something I did not expect. Something that would change everything. And that, right there, is where the real story begins. Before I take you into that moment, before I tell you what happened next, let me introduce myself properly. My name is Ava Thompson, and I am 35 years old. I don't know where you're watching this from. Maybe Toronto, maybe Vancouver, maybe Dallas, maybe Chicago. But wherever you are, lean in close because this isn't just a story. This is a lesson. A warning. A reminder that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. And that a quiet woman is not a powerless woman. Let me take you back. Far back. Before the money. Before the power. Before the silent funding. Before the tears on my shoulder. Before the click that was about to end everything they once bragged about. Back to where it all started. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota. The kind where everybody knows everybody, and where kindness can be felt just by walking down the street. My mother was a nurse. My father was a truck driver. We didn't have much, but we had warmth, and we had love. My parents always told me, Ava, the world may not always be fair, but don't let it turn you cold. For a long time I lived by that. I believed in helping others. I believed in giving even when nobody gave back. And that's exactly how I ended up tied to a family that never deserved me. The Cooper family. They were old money. Loud money. The kind that loved to show off. The kind that walked into a room and made everyone feel small. I met them when I was 19, after I won a scholarship to a summer program in Boston. That was when I met Daniel Cooper, the man I thought I would build a life with. Daniel was charming, gentle, little shy, not like the rest of them. Or so I thought. We fell in love fast. Too fast. Before I knew it, I was invited to dinners at their mansion in Connecticut, sitting at long tables with crystal glasses and gold-rimmed plates, wondering how someone like me had ended up in a room like that. First they smiled at me. First they welcomed me. At first they acted like I was becoming part of something big, something special. But slowly the smiles faded. Slowly the whispers started. Slowly I learned the rule of wealthy families. The moment you stop being useful, you stop being wanted. When Daniel and I got married, everything changed. They didn't like that I kept working. They didn't like that I had goals. They didn't like that I wanted my own money. But the worst part, they didn't like that Daniel started to grow a voice. And that voice followed mine. So they pushed me. Then they pressed me. Then they cornered me. Until finally they cut me out. Cut me out of family gatherings. Cut me out of decisions. Cut me out of the picture. And when Daniel died in a car accident 3 years into our marriage, they cut me out completely. But what they didn't know was this. Daniel left everything to me. Every property. Every trust. Every share. Every investment. Every silent asset the Coopers thought they owned belonged to me. And Daniel had a secret account, one his family never knew about. One he built not for himself, but for me and for our future children. I didn't touch it for years. Not until I learned I was pregnant. That was the moment everything changed again. Because after Daniel's death, The Coopers were sure I would crawl back to them. They were sure I would need their money to raise my child. They were sure I would fail without them. But I didn't. I built my own businesses. I learned real estate. I learned investments. I grew everything Daniel left behind. Then I grew even more. And in a twist nobody expected. Not even me. I became the one quietly funding the entire Cooper empire. They depended on me. Secretly. Silently. Every month. Every project. Every champagne success they bragged about. Every check looked like it came from one of their old accounts, but it didn't. Came from me. From the woman they once pushed out of the room. But I didn't fund them out of love. I did it because of one promise Daniel made me make. Please, Ava. Don't let them fall apart. Not because of me. So I kept them afloat. For 16 years. 16 long, tiring years. Until the day my daughter came home crying. Her name is Madison, and she is the light of my world. She's the reason I breathe, the reason I fight, the reason I stayed silent all these years. She's small, gentle, kind. Too kind for the world she's been given. That afternoon, she walked in through the front door of our home in Washington, D.C. Her backpack slipping off her shoulder, tears already rolling down her cheeks. "Mom," she cried. "They said awful things about you. They said you're nothing. They said our family only survives because of them." The Coopers. Her father's family. They had talked down about me. Again. And this time they did it in front of my child. That was the moment I knew Daniel's promise had ended. Not because I didn't love him, but because my child was hurting. Kindness is powerful, yes. Empathy is important, yes. But protecting your child is stronger than both. So, with her cheeks pressed against my shoulder and her little fingers gripping my shirt, I opened the banking app. 16 years of silent funding. One single button to end it all. Which brings us back to the moment you saw at the beginning. My thumb ready. My daughter crying. My heart steady. And then, bang, bang, bang. Someone began pounding on my front door. Hard. Urgent. Almost frantic. The kind of knock that doesn't wait for permission. My daughter gasped and clung to me tighter. Froze. The pounding continued, louder this time. And then a voice shouted from the other side. "Ava! Open the door. It's about the Coopers. Something's happened." Instant silence. My hand locked on the phone screen. My daughter trembling beside me. Something had happened. Something big. Something I was not expecting. The pounding on the door grew even louder. "Ava! Open up. Please, this is serious." My daughter, still holding on to me with her small arms, looked up with wide eyes. Her tears had stopped, but fear spread over her face. I put my hand gently on her back. "It's okay, honey," I whispered, though even I wasn't sure it was okay. The voice outside belonged to Detective Harris, a man I knew well. He had been at our home before years ago when Daniel passed away. He was a calm man, steady, polite, respectful. He never raised his voice. So hearing him shout now made my stomach tighten. Something was off. I locked my phone screen and tucked it into my pocket. 16 years of silent funding would have to wait. The Coopers would have to wait. Whatever this emergency was, it had arrived right at my doorstep. I lifted my daughter and placed her gently on the couch. "Stay here," I told her. "I'll be right back." She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her small hand. My feet moved fast toward the door, though my mind wanted to run the other way. I unlatched the lock and opened it. Detective Harris stood there breathing hard. His jacket slightly out of place like he had run from his car to the porch. The wind pushed at his coat, but he didn't seem to notice. His eyes were sharp, filled with urgency I hadn't seen before. "Ava," he said, lowering his voice. "We need to talk. Something's happened with the Coopers." My spine went cold. For a second, I wondered if they had somehow learned that I was cutting the funding. But that wasn't possible, not yet. Not this fast. "What's going on?" "Yes." He looked past me inside the house. "Can we speak privately?" My daughter watched from the couch, clutching a pillow. I shook my head. She stays where she can see me. He hesitated, then nodded. All right. I opened the door wider and stepped aside so he could enter. He walked in and stood near the hallway, still catching his breath. Ava, the Coopers' private accounts were flagged today. My heartbeat quickened, but not because he had said something I didn't expect. Their accounts were always being checked. They lived in chaos. They had no idea how sloppy their spending was. They had no idea how dependent they were. But the detective's voice was shaky. This wasn't normal, he continued. There was unusual activity. Something that set off alarms. I folded my arms, keeping my face as calm as possible. What kind of activity? He looked directly at me. Someone tried to access the accounts from inside their network. But then something else happened. Something bigger. He stepped closer. The system froze. Every account connected to the Cooper assets locked at the same time. Small breath escaped me. It couldn't be. That only happened when... Well, I hadn't done it. Not yet. My thumb never clicked the button. Detective Harris watched my expression closely. Ava, did you hear what I said? I heard you, I replied slowly. But I don't understand what you think that has to do with me. He lowered his voice. Because your name showed up in the alert. My daughter gasped. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't even breathe for a moment. Name appearing in their systems. Before I pressed the button. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. The detective kept his eyes on mine. Ava. This alert wasn't normal. It wasn't random. Someone used your identity. From the couch, my daughter whispered. Mom? I turned slightly toward her and gave her a small nod, telling her it was okay even though my insides were twisting. Name. Used inside the Cooper system. Without my action. There were only two possibilities. Someone was spying on me. Or someone had already begun tearing down the dynasty before I even touched the button. Detective Harris ran a hand over his forehead. I shouldn't even be telling you this yet. But I came personally because I don't want you walking into something dangerous. Dangerous, I repeated. Before he could answer, his radio crackled loudly. A voice came through, sharp and urgent. Detective Harris, respond. We've located the missing server. We need you back immediately. The family is requesting all investigations be private. The detective grabbed the radio. I'm on my way. Then he lowered his voice and turned to me again. Ava, stay home. Do not leave. Do not make any financial moves today. Something is happening inside that family, and you do not want to be caught in the middle of it. He left before I could ask another question. The wind slammed the door behind him. When silence returned, it felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were listening. My daughter ran into my arms the moment the door shut. I held her tightly, letting her warmth pull me back to reality. I stroked her hair. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered. We're safe. But deep inside I wasn't sure. The extreme moment had passed, but the storm it brought stayed inside my chest. I sat on the couch, pulling my daughter onto my lap as she dried her face. Mom, she said quietly, did we do something wrong? I shook my head. No, honey. We did nothing wrong. Then why did that man look scared? Her innocence hurt in a way words couldn't explain. I looked at her face, so soft, so young, the kind of face that shouldn't be worried about anything except her favorite cartoons. Sometimes adults get scared because they don't understand what's happening yet, I said softly. But that doesn't mean we're in danger. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Are they mad at us? The Coopers. She nodded. I sighed. I don't know. But even if they are, we will be okay. She sniffed again, then looked toward the kitchen. Can we make pancakes? The ones with chocolate chips. A small smile touched my lips. Simple request. A little piece of normal life breaking through the tension. Yes, I said. Let's make pancakes. For a moment, it felt like the world softened again. Like we were just a mother and daughter in a quiet house, far away from alarms, frozen accounts, or detectives at the door. We went into the kitchen together. She climbed onto her little stool beside the counter while I gathered the ingredients. The air felt calmer. The kind of calm that only comes from doing something familiar. She mixed the batter while I held the bowl. She giggled when some of the flour puffed into the air. The sound warmed me. It reminded me of why I worked so hard, why I built my own life after losing Daniel, why I kept my promise, and why I was ready to break it now. As the first batch cooked on the pan, she said, "Mom, are we going to visit Grandpa and Grandma soon?" My heart softened. "Yes, maybe next weekend." She grinned. "Can we bring them pancakes too?" "All the pancakes you want," I replied. For a few minutes, everything felt normal. A less extreme moment, gentle and safe. The smell of warm batter filled the kitchen, and my daughter hummed a little tune she always made up when she was happy. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could breathe. But peace doesn't stay long when danger is circling. Because right when I placed the pancakes on the table, my phone buzzed. Not once, not twice, but over 30 times in a row. Emails, notifications, alerts. I picked up my phone and almost dropped it. Every single system tied to the Cooper fortune had sent me an automated message. Every trust, every investment, every backup account, every business, every property. All of them were requesting emergency owner verification. And the name on every message was mine. But I never triggered any of this. My daughter looked up at me, sensing the fear on my face. "Mom." I couldn't hide it anymore. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. And then, a loud crash sounded outside the house. Metal against metal. Glass breaking. Something big hitting something else. My daughter screamed and grabbed my arm. I ran to the window, looked out, and froze. A black SUV had crashed into the telephone pole right outside our home. Smoke was rising from the hood. And 3 men in dark suits were climbing out of it. Stumbling, coughing, but moving fast. Too fast. They weren't looking at the car. They weren't calling for help. They were looking at my house. Straight at my front door. Chapter 2 ends here. A new extreme moment has begun. The 3 men in dark suits moved toward my house with a speed that made my stomach twist. They didn't look hurt from the crash. They didn't look shaken. They looked focused, like they had one job and nothing else mattered. My daughter clung to my side, her fingers digging into my arm. "Mom," she whispered. "Who are they?" I didn't answer because I didn't know. And that scared me even more. One of the men lifted something to his ear. A small earpiece. Another scanned the street like he was checking for witnesses. The third pointed directly at my front door. They were coming. And they weren't coming by mistake. "Madison," I whispered urgently, turning away from the window. "Go upstairs. Now." Her eyes widened. "But now," I repeated, my voice shaking. She nodded fast and ran toward the stairs. Her footsteps were small and scared. I heard each one until she disappeared into the hallway above. The knocks came next. Loud, hard, dangerous. Bang, bang, bang. "Ava Thompson. Open the door immediately." A voice barked. I stepped back from the entrance. My whole body was tense, ready to protect my daughter, ready to do whatever I needed to keep her safe. I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. The pounding grew harder. "Ms. Thompson, we need to speak with you. This is urgent." Their voices weren't like Detective Harris's. He was calm even in chaos. These men sounded like they expected obedience. Like they were used to people opening for them. Like they weren't used to hearing the word no. I picked up my phone, unsure whether to call the police or run. Then my screen lit up. Oh. From a name I hadn't seen in years. Eleanor Cooper. The matriarch. The queen of that dynasty. The woman who had looked me in the eyes at my husband's funeral and said, "You were never one of us." Why was she calling me now? Why today of all days? Why at the exact moment her world seemed to be falling apart? The knocking shook the whole doorframe. "Ava! Open up!" I stepped further back, staring at the glowing name on my phone. I didn't want to answer. I didn't want to hear her voice. Not after everything she had done. Not after the way she treated me. But something in my chest told me to pick up. Not out of respect. Not out of fear. But because she never called for something small. And something big, maybe bigger than I realized, was happening. I took a breath and pressed the green button. Before I could say a word, Eleanor's voice cracked through the speaker. Ava. Ava, listen to me carefully. Do not open your door. Do you understand me? Do not open it. My heart slammed against my ribs. She knew. She knew someone was here. And she was warning me. I know they're outside, I said quietly. Her breath hitched. They got there faster than I thought. What is going on? I demanded. Why are men in suits at my door? Why did I get emergency verification emails? Why did my name show up in your system? The pounding got louder. The house shook again. Ava, Eleanor said, her voice low and trembling. This is not the time. Listen to me. Take Madison. Leave your house quietly. Do it now. My chest tightened. She had never said Madison's name out loud before. Never cared enough to. What happened? I whispered. Tell me. A long silence. Then she spoke in a voice I had never heard from her before. Small, uncertain, almost afraid. Something has been stolen from us, she said. Something important. Something tied to Daniel. Daniel. The sound of his name hit me like an old wound being pushed open. And whoever took it, she continued, is framing you. Before I could respond, the banging turned into full force. Boom. They were trying to break the door down. Eleanor's voice rose in panic. Ava, take your daughter and run. Froze. Someone was trying to frame me. Someone knew about their accounts. Someone knew my name. Someone used me as a shield. But who? And why now? Ava! Eleanor yelled. I snapped out of it. I hung up the call, grabbed my daughter's backpack, and ran up the stairs. Madison! Called. We need to go. She peeked out of her room, holding her stuffed penguin with shaking hands. Mom, are they inside? No, I said firmly, kneeling down to her level. But we can't stay here. But where will we go? Somewhere safe, I whispered. I stuffed her backpack with essentials. Her tablet, charger, a sweater, her favorite book. Then I gently placed her penguin inside it. Mom, she whispered. Are they bad people? I couldn't scare her with the truth. I don't know yet, I said. But we need to be smart. I grabbed my own bag, my documents, my laptop, and the flash drive Daniel had given me before he died. The one he never explained, the one I never opened, the one I kept hidden for years. Something told me it was time to bring it. Boom. The men hit the door again. The frame cracked. My daughter covered her ears. We have to go, I said, lifting her into my arms. I moved down the hallway toward the back staircase, the one that led to the garage. We kept it locked and blocked from the outside. It was our safest exit. Hold on to me, I whispered. She wrapped her arms around my neck like a tiny koala. The banging grew louder. The door downstairs groaned. Wood splintered. Voices shouted. Hurry! Break it! She's inside. My breath turned thin. The walls felt too close. The house suddenly didn't feel like a home. It felt like a trap. I reached the backstairs door, unlocked it, and moved down as quietly and fast as I could. My daughter whispered into my ear. Mom, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, I said, kissing her forehead. But I've got you. I will always protect you. I reached the garage door, pressed the button, and held my daughter tight as it slowly lifted. But as soon as the outside light touched the floor, car pulled into the driveway. Fast. Too fast. Stopping inches from the garage entrance. My heart dropped. Not again. Not another threat. Not another group. The car door opened. But this time, the person who stepped out wasn't wearing a suit. Wasn't dressed like those men. Wasn't one of them. It was someone I recognized immediately. Someone I never thought I'd see again. Someone I wasn't ready to face. Daniel's younger brother, Ethan. The wild one. The unpredictable one. The one who had vanished years ago after a fight with the family. The one who had refused their money. The one who disappeared without a trace. He stepped toward us, eyes wide, hair messy, breathing hard. "Ava!" he shouted. "Get in the car." Froze. My daughter buried her face in my shoulder. "Ethan," I whispered. "What are you doing here?" "There's no time," he yelled. "You're in danger. They're not who you think they are." "Who?" I demanded. "Those men." "No," he said, shaking his head. "Not them." Then he looked straight into my eyes. "The Coopers." Before I could respond, boom! The front door finally gave way. Voices stormed inside the house. Footsteps thundered through the living room. They were coming. Ethan reached for us. "Ava, please. Get in." But before I could move, before I could choose, before I could decide whether to trust the one Cooper I never understood, a shadow appeared behind him. A figure stepped out of the passenger side of his car. Slowly, quietly, hidden by the door until now. When the figure came into full view, my entire world froze. My breath stopped. My vision blurred. My knees almost gave out. 'Cause standing there, alive, breathing, older, but unmistakable, was Daniel, my dead husband, the father of my child, the man I buried. He was standing right there. And he whispered one word. "Ava." For a moment the world stopped moving. No sound, no breath, no time, just him, standing there, alive. Daniel, my husband, my daughter's father, the man I had cried for, mourned for, buried. He stood beside Ethan with the same brown eyes I memorized years ago, the same gentle gaze, the same soft shape of a smile, except now his face held something else. Something heavy, something painful. Shock froze every part of me. My arms tightened around my daughter as if she could be taken from me in the next second. My lips trembled. My legs shook so hard I had to lean against the garage door for balance. "Daniel!" My voice broke into pieces. "How?" My daughter peeked over my shoulder. "Dad!" she whispered, confused. She had never met him. She had only seen photos. She must have recognized him from the picture beside her bed, the one she always asked about. Daniel stepped forward. His hands raised slightly as if afraid to scare us. "Ava," he said softly, I know this is a shock. I know it doesn't make sense. I know you're scared." I couldn't speak. My throat locked. My mind screamed that this wasn't real. Couldn't be real. Yet he stood in front of me with the same gentle voice I once heard every night before sleeping. Behind us, inside the house, the pounding footsteps grew closer. The men were searching room by room. Any second now they would reach the back hallway. Daniel looked over my shoulder at the door, shaking under their boots. His face tightened. "Ava, please," he said, voice suddenly firm. "We have to go. Now." I couldn't move. Couldn't step forward. Couldn't step back. The world had just flipped itself upside down. "Mom!" My daughter whispered against my neck. "Is that really him? Is that really my dad?" My breath caught in my chest. She asked so quietly, so honestly that it split me open. Daniel swallowed hard, emotion filling his eyes. "Madison," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. But I'm here now." Her little fingers gripped my shirt tighter. The footsteps inside grew louder. They were getting closer, fast. Ethan stepped between us and the noise. "Ava, not now," he said. "You can ask every question later. But if you stay here, those men will take you. They already tried once. They won't fail again." My eyes shot to him. "Tried once? What are you talking about?" He grabbed the top of the garage door and lifted it the rest of the way. "Get in the car." Fear snapped through my body. My daughter started crying again. My instincts finally kicked in. I held her tight and moved toward the car. Daniel opened the back door for us, but my legs locked again. What if this was a trick? What if this wasn't real? What if it was a trap? He saw the fear in my eyes. So he did something I never expected. He said the words he used to whisper when I had nightmares. Words nobody else knew. "You're safe with me, little star." My breath hitched. The world tilted again. That was my name. His name for me. A name I hadn't heard in 16 years. It broke something inside me. I stepped forward. My daughter clung to my neck as I placed her gently into the back seat. I climbed in beside her, still holding her hand, still staring at Daniel like he could vanish again if I blinked. Daniel shut the door. Ethan ran around to the driver's seat. The engine roared. Bang! The door inside the house burst open. Voices shouted. They had found the back hallway. "Go!" Daniel yelled. Ethan slammed his foot on the gas. Tires screeched. The car shot backward down the driveway just as the men reached the doorway. I looked out the back window. One of them pointed at us. Another shouted into a radio. The car swerved into the street. Ethan drove fast. Too fast. But he handled the wheel like someone who had been running his whole life. Daniel glanced back at me. "Are you okay?" I don't know," I whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." His face tightened. Pain flickered across his eyes. "I know." My daughter held my hand tightly. Her voice shook. "Mom, where are we going?" "To safety," Daniel said, turning toward her with a soft, trembling smile. "I promise we won't let anything happen to you." Her small voice wavered. "Why are they chasing us?" Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. "Because someone did something terrible. And they want to blame your mother for it." "Something terrible," I whispered. His jaw clenched. "Yes, something connected to me." My heart dropped. Old pain returned. New fear formed. But I didn't push. Not now. Not when everything had already turned upside down. My daughter leaned against me, and I wrapped my arms around her. I kissed the top of her head. "It's okay, honey," I whispered. "I'm right here." Ethan drove through narrow streets, turning corners so fast the world outside became a blur of houses and trees. Finally, after several minutes of chaos, he made a long turn into a quiet, empty road surrounded by tall trees. He slowed down. The car grew still. The world became quiet again. We had escaped. Now. Daniel turned toward me again. "Ava, there's so much I need to explain." My throat tightened. "You think?" He nodded slowly. "You deserve everything. Every answer. Every truth. But not here." He looked out the window. "We don't know who's tracking us." My pulse jumped. "Tracking us?" Ethan spoke for the first time since driving. "Ava, this family isn't what you think. We aren't who you think. The secrets go back decades. And someone powerful, is trying to destroy everything connected to us." Daniel nodded. "And they decided to use you because you were the perfect target." The words cut through me. The perfect target. My hand shook. My daughter noticed and placed her tiny hand over mine. "Mom, breathe." She was 9, but at that moment she sounded much older. Braver than she should be. Kinder than the world she was born into. Her kindness gave me strength. I squeezed her hand and took a slow breath. Daniel watched quietly, pain in his eyes as he looked at her, as he realized how much he had missed, how much time had been lost. My heartbeat softened. The danger was still around us, but for a moment, a small moment, peace existed inside that car. A less extreme moment, gentle and fragile. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To a safe house," Daniel said. "Somewhere nobody knows about. Somewhere we can talk." I stared at him, still unsure whether to believe my eyes or my fear. "So you're alive," I said quietly. "You've been alive all this time." His eyes dropped. "Yes. And you never contacted me?" His voice trembled. "I wasn't allowed to." My stomach flipped. "Allowed? By who?" He swallowed hard. "Ava, when I died." "You didn't die," I snapped. "So what really happened? Did you fake it? Were you taken? Did you run?" He closed his eyes. "I didn't run." His answer wasn't enough. Not even close. But I could tell something heavy sat behind his words. Something he wasn't ready to reveal yet. My daughter leaned closer. "Dad, where were you?" His whole face cracked for a moment. Emotion broke through the mask he was trying to hold. "I was somewhere I couldn't leave," he whispered. "But I never stopped thinking about you. Either of you." My daughter's eyes softened. "It's okay," she whispered gently. "You're here now." Daniel's lips trembled like he might cry. He reached back slowly, not touching her, just holding his hand in the air as if asking permission. She looked at me. He nodded. She reached out and took his hand. Daniel let out a shaky breath. "I've dreamed of this moment every day." My chest tightened painfully. But before I could say anything, Ethan suddenly stiffened in the driver's seat. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the rearview mirror. "What's wrong?" Daniel asked. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "They found us." My heart stopped. I whipped my head toward the back window. A black car had turned onto the quiet road. Then another behind it. And another. My breath caught. This wasn't random. This wasn't a coincidence. They were tracking us. "How?" Daniel whispered. "How did they find us so fast?" Ethan gripped the wheel. "We need to move. Now." He slammed the car into drive. But before we could move, a fourth car appeared in front of us, blocking the road completely. We were trapped. The engines around us revved. Doors began to open. Men stepped out. Dozens of them. Dressed in black. Moving with military precision. My daughter whimpered. "Mom." I wrapped my arms around her. "Don't look, baby." Daniel's voice grew sharp. "Ethan's seat belts. Now." But it was too late. The men surrounded us. One stepped forward. Wearing black gloves and a cold expression. He tapped on the hood of our car with his knuckles. Then he leaned down, looked straight through the windshield, and locked eyes with me. "Ava Thompson," he said through the glass. His voice was smooth, dangerous, too certain. "You're coming with us." The moment Daniel finally opened his eyes felt like my soul had been lifted straight out of a storm and set gently on solid ground. It didn't happen with a gasp or a dramatic jolt like in movies. It was quiet, almost slow. His eyelids fluttered, his fingers twitched, and then he whispered my name like he had only paused mid-sentence. "Evelyn." Froze. The doctors had told me awakening from a coma could take weeks, or months, or years. But he said my name so clearly, so softly, like the 5 months he'd been silent were nothing but a long nap. I squeezed his hand, but I didn't cry. I was too shocked to move. "Hey," I finally whispered. "You're back." He blinked a few more times before his gaze sharpened on me, and something inside me broke. Relief. Fear releasing. Love resurfacing. Gratitude I couldn't fit into words. I rested my head gently on his arm, the one that wasn't covered in wires, and just breathed. Then came the words I was not expecting. "Evelyn." "No. I know what they tried to do." I lifted my head slowly. "What do you mean?" He swallowed like it hurt, and for a few seconds he just breathed against the oxygen tube. Then he spoke again, quiet, but clear enough that every word hit me like a stone tossed into deep water. "I heard them." My heart stopped. He continued. "Your boss, his son-in-law, the lawyer, the nurses they paid. Even your sister when she came in that morning she thought no one else knew about." He shut his eyes tightly. "They thought I was completely gone. But I heard every single thing." I covered my mouth with my hands. This whole time he knew. Every whisper, every secret, every plan to take his ranch, every lie. He knew it all. He opened his eyes again. "Evelyn," I tried to move, tried to speak, but I was stuck inside my own body. It was like being buried alive in my own mind. I slid my hand behind his head to support him as he tried to shift. "You're safe now," I whispered. "You're safe." He looked at me firmly, with strength that surprised me. "No. You made me safe." I felt my cheeks heat. I didn't do it alone. You were the first one to believe something wasn't right, he said. You were the only one who didn't think I was a problem to solve. You saw me as a person. You saved my life with that alone. My throat tightened. No one had ever said anything like that to me. Not my parents. Not my siblings. Not my ex. No one. Daniel had been listening even in silence. Then, just like that, the moment softened. The machines hummed. The sunlight outside his window warmed the sheets. And for the first time in a long time I felt peace. A nurse stepped in, gasped, and nearly dropped the clipboard when she saw him awake. The room burst into activity. Doctors rushed in. Voices overlapped. Questions flew around like flocks of startled birds. Can you move your fingers? Do you recognize your surroundings? What's the last thing you remember? Does anything hurt? Do you know who the president is? Daniel answered each question with sarcasm and dry humor. And just like that, the room shifted from chaos to cautious joy. But the moment the doctors stepped out, leaving us alone again, his expression grew serious. Evelyn, he whispered, I need you to sit. I did. There's something else. My stomach tightened. What is it? He looked toward the window like he was trying to gather strength from the sky. The people who tried to take the ranch, they didn't just want the land. He turned back to me. They wanted what's under it. My whole body stilled. Under it. He nodded. My dad found something years ago. Something he hid. Something only he and I knew about. And somehow they found out. What did he find? I asked quietly. Daniel's voice dropped even lower. Oil. I stared at him. Your family, he continued, thought I'd never wake up. They planned to fake my transfer to a private facility, declare the ranch an unpayable debt, and take everything before anyone questioned anything. He took a shaky breath. They wanted you out of the way. But you wouldn't let go. I placed my hand against his cheek. Daniel, why didn't you tell me you were fighting for something this big? I couldn't, he said. My dad told me to keep it secret until all the paperwork was done. He didn't trust anyone. Except me. And now I'm trusting you. For a long time neither of us spoke. Hidden for years. The ranch wasn't just land. It was the future of his entire family line. And he trusted me with the truth. Then another knock came to the door. This time it wasn't a doctor. It wasn't a nurse. It was his ex-wife. And behind her, my boss's son-in-law. They froze when they saw him awake. And right then I knew. This wasn't over. They knew he could expose everything. And people who plan to steal millions don't just walk away when the plan fails. Daniel tightened his grip on my hand. Stay close, he whispered. Don't leave my side. His ex-wife's face trembled between fear and disbelief. She stepped in slowly, clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles turned white. Honey, she whispered, voice shaking. You're awake. Daniel stared at her with a calm I didn't recognize. Yes, he said softly. And I heard everything. Her eyes widened. The man behind her, the son-in-law, tensed like he was calculating a new plan right there in front of us. His jaw locked. His fists curled. His eyes didn't look at Daniel. They looked at me. As if I was the problem. As if I ruined everything for them. As if I needed to be handled. Daniel shifted in his bed slightly, wincing in pain but refusing to look away. Whatever happens next, he murmured, we face it together. Then he squeezed my hand again. And right at that moment, the lights in the hospital flickered. Just once. Then again. Then the entire floor went dark for 3 seconds before emergency generators kicked in. Doctors shouted down the hallway. Nurses rushed. Doors slammed. Machines rebooted. And Daniel whispered only 2 words to me. They're here. The very people who wanted him silent were now inside the building. The room fell silent except for the slow beeping of the heart monitor. I could feel my own heartbeat matching its rhythm. A step. Heavy. Fast. Purposeful. Getting closer. I stood slowly, keeping my hand in Daniel's. The door handle turned,